So let me just start off with the questions for Dr. Bassar. Give Dr. Mateos time to catch her breath. Dr. Bassar, the first question that popped up in my screen is, what about NK cell exhaustion? Is this going to be a limitation for the CAR NKs or not?
Well, I'm selecting now. We're still working on it. I'm like there's no well-defined. I'm selecting phenotype for NK cell exhaustion. So first of all, with IL-15, yes, of course there is a risk to be selected. Yeah, at the end, I'm selected they relapse. I'm selected some of the patient, and when you look at them selected NK cell, I'm like phenotype. They are losing them selected their function with the high expression CD57 and the KLRG1, but there is not like T cells like PD1, CTLA4, and then now we're trying with different cytokine with some checkpoint inhibitor knockout. We're trying to overcome with the NK cell exhaustion.
Have you encountered any clinical evidence of NK exhaustion in the NKs so far?
Well, I'm selected for clinical evidence. I'm selected the patient that we infuse them like the current cases at the end, like even like 6 months, like 1 year. Just when you look at them in, when you look at them, like the NK cell phenotype, they're losing their ligand, like the activations, like the receptor, like BNAM, like NKG2D. They're all other like the NCR receptor. Besides that, just like they're losing the ability to produce the perforin enzyme B.
Thank you very much. So, do you want to take any questions, or should we go with the NK?
Dr. Mateos, in patient, with less than 10%, you have around the VRD failure, like they are non-responder. So in your practice for those patients, like, do you add daratumumab, especially if they are like around 67, 65, multiple comorbidities, maybe VTD base is not a good option for them. So what do you, like an option like adding DARA, switch to KDD, what's your preference?
Well, this is a good question. Unfortunately, this is not a common situation because with RVD, approximately 90% of the patients are able to achieve a partial response. But it's true that when we face with any patient in this situation, the situation is challenging. And my preference is to switch to KD plus daratumumab because we are going to switch from bortezomib to carfilzomib. We know that carfilzomib is able to overcome the bortezomib resistance, and we are going to add the monoclonal antibody anti-CD38. Another possibility would be to go to Pomdex plus daratumumab, but definitely I will switch. And it's true that we could potentially think about DCEP or conventional chemotherapy, but maybe we are going to add more toxicity, and I am not completely sure if we are going to add more efficacy. And I would reserve this type of conventional chemotherapy like VDT-PACE or just D-PACE because we are not going to incorporate again bortezomib and thalidomide or lenalidomide. Would be my choice for young patients with aggressive disease, maybe with extramedullary disease. But if extramedullary disease is not present, my preference is in my clinic KD plus daratumumab.
Okay.
Very good. Dr. Bassar, for the back to the NK cells, they're actually many interested in these cells to the many questions actually that I've been getting on my cell phone rather than the actual platform that we're using is that how promising is CAR NK for anti-BCMA for multiple myeloma, since we're speaking about multiple myeloma?
Well, I'm still like, yeah, thank you. I'm like this is the one target that our lab is working on it. I'm like again, I'm like with the Takeda, I'm like the collaboration. So we have the preliminary, like the data in vivo and in vitro, and it's looking quite similar. We can eliminate the myeloma, can cure like the some like the mice with the anti-BCMA CAR actually. So hopefully, like in a couple of months, I think it's like they're gonna start like the phase 1 trial for this. And we have actually just to add that, like besides of BCMA forums, like the multiple myeloma, we have like other target, single target or combination with like the other like BCMA with CD38 or with CCS1 or like CD138. I think in early next year we're gonna start clinical trial with that.
Very good. Thank you very much. So the fact that you in the Liu et al, the famous publication by your group, that you guys haven't reached the max dose for the NK cells. Is this something that should provide hope that we can go up and up in the dose to get more response?
Yes, definitely. So just like there is the main issue like with NK cells, as I mentioned, like in our slide also, there was like about the persistency. But when you put them like, even if you look at them like the table that I summarized them like the results from the clinical trial from 11 patients, even with like the low number of cells, we're getting them like the really high response, actually like the complete response. And we didn't see even like the one single like the patient any neurotoxicity or cytotoxicity, because our concern, since we incorporated our cases with IL-15, we thought IL-15 can be like the toxic. But in the safety like the study, we saw that, so that there is no any toxicity like regarding the current NK cell infusion. Now we start to like up like the going up. And actually, like for some patients, like instead of like the single infusion, we're going to like for second or maybe third infusion. It depends on like the patient response. Yeah, like I think it's going to be really promising like in the future.
So do you have any questions for Dr. Mateos?
Problem I cannot. I don't have an access to the question platform, so I don't know if any other.
Okay, Dr. Mateos, you know, everybody talks about MRD and multiple myeloma. Do you think the technical no, I wouldn't call it issues, but MRD standardization would be a problem in using MRD-directed therapies or approaches?
Well, I think that standardization is not going to be a problem because, well, next generation sequencing is an automatized technique, and next generation flow is becoming also an automatized technique. It's true that the next generation flow requires from observer expertise, and in fact, I think that both techniques had advantages and disadvantages. The authorities are now in the process of evaluating the role of MRD in myeloma as a primary endpoint in the upcoming clinical trials. And in principle, they would prefer next generation sequencing, especially because of the standardization or because there is